My name is Keisha Johnson, and I was 36 the day my life quietly fell apart. It didn't happen with a fight, a slammed door, or a shout. It happened in the cold, deliberate language of a text message. I'm done. I'm leaving. And I've moved our money. That was it. 10 years of a marriage boiled down to a few words on a screen. I remember standing behind the counter of my boutique, folding a stack of crisp shirts, my hands steady while the phone vibrated again with more details. Miami, a younger woman, an empty bank account. My chest tightened for a fraction of a second. Then I exhaled. Calm. Controlled. I helped the woman in front of me pick the perfect dress, offered a smile that didn't falter, even as my mind cataloged every step I would take next. Shock had a way of visiting quietly, but it doesn't last if you've spent years preparing for life's inevitable betrayals. I had worked too hard, built too much, to let a single person's recklessness define me. Every receipt, every account, every plan I had tucked away became more than numbers. They became armor. In that moment, I understood something deeply personal. Resilience isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It moves through you in measured steps, in clarity when everything around you is chaos. And while Darius thought he could dismantle me with a text, he had no idea he had just started a fight he wasn't prepared to win. Looking back, the signs were always there if I had chosen to see them. Late nights at work that never added up, unexplained charges on our joint card, an obsession with his new gym routine that went beyond health. Small pieces scattered, like a puzzle I refused to finish, until the picture became unavoidable. I started quietly, almost imperceptibly. A separate bank account, tucked away in a different branch, untouched and untraceable. Every paycheck I deposited there, every small bonus, I treated like armor. I reviewed old statements, flagged irregularities, traced every suspicious withdrawal. What some might call paranoia, I called foresight. I reorganized my boutique's finances, making sure nothing could be questioned. Inventory audits, client accounts, supplier contracts, I methodically strengthened the foundation I had built from scratch. Every step felt like a rehearsal for a storm I couldn't yet name. Even in those quiet moments, I reminded myself to breathe. The betrayal wasn't here yet. It was somewhere in the wings. But I refused to enter it unarmed. I documented little things. A vague text, a missed meeting, a slip of information that didn't belong. I didn't confront. I simply prepared. I learned that preparation isn't dramatic. It doesn't need an audience. It's slow, patient, invisible until the moment it matters most. And when the storm finally came, I wouldn't be caught off guard. Because I had already chosen to protect myself, not with anger, but with strategy, and with every ounce of the quiet strength I carried every day. The texts came fast after that first one. Provocative, taunting, full of assumptions about how I would react. But I didn't. I let them sit unread in my inbox while I focused on the next steps. I had a lawyer I trusted, and the first call I made that morning wasn't to him. It was to myself to steady the edges of my mind. I contacted my lawyer with a concise message. I need you to prepare for the worst. No dramatics, no begging, just facts. Then I turned my attention to what I could control. Fraudulent charges had already begun to appear. Hotels in Miami, large cash withdrawals, car leases I had never signed. I disputed them immediately, documenting everything. Receipts, emails, statements. I treated every piece like ammunition, knowing the day would come when it mattered. Throughout it all, I stayed at my boutique, meeting clients, coordinating shipments, approving designs. I didn't let him see panic, and I didn't let myself indulge it. Anger and betrayal were allowed to exist quietly in the back of my mind, but they didn't run the show. Every choice I made was deliberate, calculated, measured. I learned then that strategy is quiet and precise. It's not about proving someone wrong in the moment. It's about building a path where they cannot win. And in that calm, deliberate space, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years: control. Not over him, never over him, but over myself, over my life, and over the next chapter one was already beginning to write. I spent hours compiling every piece of evidence, methodically tracing the trail Darius had left. Receipts for hotel rooms in Miami, texts to Tanya, strange deposits and withdrawals. Every entry in our joint account that didn't make sense became another thread in the story I was quietly unraveling. I labeled, scanned, and organized everything so that when the time came, nothing could be dismissed or ignored. Sitting at my kitchen table late at night, I felt the weight of the contrast between our lives. My boutique, organized, flourishing, a reflection of years of dedication. My home orderly, secure. And him, seemingly unraveling, reckless, blind to the foundations he had once relied on. The disparity wasn't just financial. It was personal. I had built stability with intentionality. He had burned bridges with impulsive shortcuts. And yet, I didn't let resentment take hold. I allowed myself the truth. The betrayal stung, sharp and cold, but it also revealed a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I could see what needed to be done, who I could rely on, and the limits I would never allow anyone to cross. I reminded myself often that strength is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up in preparation, in patience, in the courage to face what others would rather ignore. Each document I added to my files, each detail I confirmed, became a reaffirmation. I was not powerless, and I was ready. When the day came, I would not just respond. I would expose, protect, and reclaim. The day of the emergency hearing, I woke early, not with dread, but with focus. I dressed simply, comfortably, nothing flashy, nothing that needed explanation. My lawyer and I arrived at the courthouse, files in hand, evidence organized down to the smallest receipt. Darius walked in with a swagger that could have been mistaken for confidence. But I saw past it. I saw the cracks in his composure, the edge of uncertainty he was trying to hide. When the judge called the case, I stayed calm, listening to the opening statements. Darius's words were smooth, rehearsed, trying to frame me as reactive, irrational. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt, didn't flinch. Then it was our turn. My lawyer presented the evidence. Texts, bank statements, hotel receipts, credit card disputes, all meticulously documented, all tied to his premeditated actions. I watched as each piece landed, quietly witnessing the realization settle across the courtroom. Darius's confidence faltered as his narrative unraveled. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The truth was self-evident. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and relief. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. About ensuring that what he thought would destroy me instead became his undoing. Sitting there, I reflected on the months of preparation that had brought me to this moment. Every quiet night, every careful calculation, every protective measure, it all mattered. And as the judge reviewed the evidence, I knew with absolute certainty I was no longer a bystander in my own life. I was in control. The ruling came faster than I expected. The judge froze the shared assets, acknowledged the premeditated nature of Darius's actions, and confirmed my right to protect my separate property. Relief washed over me, not a triumphant rush, but a steady, deep certainty that my preparation had paid off. I didn't cheer. I just exhaled and let the quiet power of the moment settle in. Back at the boutique, life went on. I arranged shipments, checked in with clients, and managed staff without missing a beat. The day-to-day rhythm became my anchor. Outside the courtroom, the world was unchanged, but inside, everything had shifted. I was no longer reacting to chaos. I was moving forward with intention. Messages from friends and family trickled in, offering support and admiration, but I didn't need validation. The victory wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about reclaiming control, establishing boundaries, and refusing to let someone else's recklessness dictate my life. Even Darius's absence felt like a relief. The space he left, once filled with subtle manipulation and unspoken tension, now held clarity. I could think, plan, and breathe without distraction. My boutique, my accounts, my home, they were mine, untouched by his choices. In that first week after the ruling, I realized something important. Triumph isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet return to your life, the seamless continuation of your work, the knowledge that you're standing exactly where you're supposed to be, solid, prepared, and unstoppable. Months passed, and I watched from a distance as Darius struggled to rebuild the life he had thought he could have on impulse. His career took hits he hadn't anticipated. Clients pulled contracts, colleagues questioned his reliability, and his reputation quietly crumbled. Even his family began to see the truth, though I never needed to intervene. The pattern of recklessness that had once seemed inconsequential became his undoing. Tanya faded from the picture too, though not entirely without lessons. I heard through mutual acquaintances that reality had set in faster than she expected. The excitement, the escape, the illusion of instant gratification, they all came crashing down, leaving a reckoning with consequences she hadn't prepared for. I didn't celebrate, I simply observed. There was no satisfaction in their mistakes, only confirmation that the choices we make have weight. Meanwhile, I kept building. My boutique grew, client loyalty strengthened, and my team flourished under careful guidance. Every challenge I faced in business felt different now, smaller, manageable, because I had practiced resilience when it mattered most. I no longer feared instability. I anticipated it and met it with strategy. The contrast was undeniable, but I didn't dwell on it. What mattered was my life, my growth, my focus. Darius's downfall was simply the backdrop to my continued ascent. It wasn't revenge. It was evidence that careful planning, self-awareness, and steady discipline could turn betrayal into opportunity. I had lost nothing that truly belonged to me, and I was free to thrive. 5 years later, my boutique isn't just a single location anymore. It's a small empire of thriving spaces, each one a reflection of the work, care, and strategy one poured into it. Expansion didn't happen overnight. It took patience, precision, and a willingness to trust my instincts, even when the risk felt uncomfortable. But every new store, every partnership, every media feature reinforced what I already knew. Resilience pays off. Mentoring young entrepreneurs became one of my proudest roles. I share not just business tactics, but the lessons I learned about self-reliance, boundaries, and protecting yourself when life shifts unexpectedly. I see that same quiet fire in their eyes, the determination to move forward without waiting for permission or validation. I can guide them, but I never do for them what they can accomplish themselves. Darius and Tanya? Their initial excitement long faded. I hear occasional whispers of their struggles, reminders that choices carry consequences. I don't dwell on them. Their story is theirs, just as mine is mine, and I refuse to let it take focus from what I've built. What matters is the space I've created for myself, a life shaped by intention, growth, and empowerment. Betrayal was never the end. It was the catalyst that forced me to clarify my priorities, to protect what was mine, and to rise beyond the limits someone else tried to impose. Today, my triumph isn't just survival. It's flourishing, it's influence, and it's the quiet, undeniable proof that I am unstoppable. The boutique's anniversary felt different this year. Standing in the middle of the crowd, friends, clients, employees, and young entrepreneurs I've mentored, I realized how far I had come. There was laughter, music, the hum of a thriving space, and beneath it all, a quiet sense of completion that no one could disrupt. I thought about the day Darius left, the text that threatened to unravel everything. The fear, the shock, the small tightening in my chest. It had all been real. But it had also been the spark that reminded me how much control I actually had. I had prepared, I had acted, and I had protected not just my assets, but my life, my peace, and my dignity. Looking around, I understood something essential. Betrayal can't define you unless you allow it. Choices matter. Boundaries matter. And resilience, cultivated quietly over time, becomes an unshakable foundation. I hadn't needed revenge. I had needed clarity and strength, and that was exactly what I claimed for myself. Darius had underestimated me, and that miscalculation had been his undoing. My life now is measured not by his absence, but by my presence, my achievements, and my vision for the future. I feel fulfilled, independent, and alive in a way I never could have predicted. Betrayal wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. A turning point that taught me my value, my power, and my capacity to rise. And standing here today, I know with certainty, this is just the start of everything I am capable of becoming. Did you enjoy the story? If so, hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Revenge with Keisha. See you next time.